Antonio, thanks for joining us today. So a high-level meeting of the Chinese Communist Party took place on Thursday. But here's the interesting thing, right? They omitted any mention of their 5.5% GDP goal for this year. Now, some are taking it as China sort of giving up on that goal. So I want to get your thoughts on that. Does this mean China is realizing it can't achieve this goal?
I think that is what it means. I mean, Xi Jinping already announced a few weeks ago that they would no longer use GDP growth targets as a measure of how well he was doing. He decided that that is not how you would decide how well he is doing. And so they're definitely playing down the GDP growth, and I think it's because they cannot achieve it.
Now, he says it's not a measure, but here's a blunt question for you. Do you think, China set out to achieve a goal? It seems like now they can't. Do you consider this a failure, maybe at least a miscalculation?
Oh, it's definitely a failure. And remember that the numbers that they had before were probably not real. When they were hitting 6.7, they probably weren't really hitting 6.7. They were hitting something less than that. So this, in a way, might mean that if they're not even going to claim to hit 5.5, God knows how low that real number is. And it's definitely a failure. I mean, it's the Xi Jinping policies of his crackdown on everything, restrictions on the tech industry, the real estate industry, the debt bubble, youth unemployment. It's everything.
Now, you mentioned a list of things. What do you think the biggest reason is to why they can't achieve this 5.5 target?
Well, there's a number of reasons. So you have endemic problems with debt, right? Public debt is a huge thing. Another one is the pandemic has done so much, not the pandemic, their response to the pandemic has done so much permanent damage to the Chinese economy and to the world economy. And then you have continued lockdowns. I live and work in Mongolia, and this morning, they decided to stop the flights. The Chinese government decided to stop the flights from Hohhot to Ulaanbaatar because of COVID. So every time you're canceling flights, you're closing borders, you're going to be negatively impacting your GDP.
Right. So their pandemic response, their zero COVID policy, right? It might be the biggest obstacle. But, despite that, let me give you a quote from the CCP meeting. They said the dynamic zero COVID policy must be insisted on. Can you explain to me the logic here? It seems they're putting their own economy in the backseat.
I honestly cannot explain to you why they did that. I find that baffling. Why are they insisting on this zero COVID policy? I thought surely by now they would start to ease up, and I'm sure that they have. I really believe because they've reduced the lockdowns in Shanghai. So it seems to me that they are actually easing off of the COVID zero policy, or at least that they're recognizing that they have to keep Shanghai and Beijing open to keep the economy going. But I don't know why they're insisting on this COVID zero policy.
Maybe it's because this is Xi Jinping's personal policy. If he walks back on it, it might make him look bad. But anyways, Antonio Graceffo, China economic analyst, thanks for coming on today.
Okay, thank you for having me, Don.